My name is Nduta. I am the Chief Executive Officer of United Disabled Persons of Kenya, UDPK. We're an umbrella organization of organizations of persons with disabilities in Kenya. If you look at the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2003, the one that was repealed by this new one, it was not comprehensive enough. So, for example, if it talked about accessibility, but only addressed issues to do with physical access. But we know that accessibility is very broad. We know accessibility of information is very important, and people with disabilities are very diverse. So we have blind people, we have people who have intellectual disabilities, we have people with autism spectrum, and all of them have different information needs, and they need to interact with information differently for them to be able to understand. So this new act really addresses the issue of accessibility very broadly in the way it should be, in the way the Constitution intended. Another thing is that it really criminalizes denying someone reasonable accommodation. So reasonable accommodation is an adjustment that for example, an employer is supposed to make at the workplace, and some of these adjustments are not very expensive. So for example, if you have an employee with a disability, adjusting maybe, let's say, either lifting at the table a little bit or adjusting footrests, maybe moving an office, for maybe asking someone to switch with a colleague with a disability. Maybe they can't access upstairs because there are challenges of access. Maybe you swap offices, they come downstairs, maybe they find it easier to access. So those are reasonable accommodations. Actually many of these accommodations cost almost nothing, but some of them will cost a little bit. So this new law criminalizes. If you deny someone with a disability reasonable accommodation, they can go to court. And if they're able to prove that, then because this new law comes with penalties, we have seen employers being criminalized, but not to say we have to wait until it gets to that point. The idea is for us to educate ourselves on this new law, understand our responsibilities, and how we can work together as stakeholders to support each other, to make sure that people with disabilities are included and they play their role on an equal way with everyone. So the other thing that makes this law very unique is that it talks about issues to do with legal capacity. And this concept basically means the law must be able to treat everyone equally. So you find in the previous law, it was not very clear. It was actually silent on matters to do with legal capacity. And this issue applies a lot for people with intellectual disabilities, people with autism spectrum, especially those who have high support needs. So just because I am not verbal doesn't mean I am not communicating, that I'm not understood. So it's for the society to be able to provide communication, ATs, assistive technologies, for me to be able to communicate with everyone. So you'll find previously words like imbecile, lunatic, people with autism spectrum, or those with autism and high support needs are not seen as legal people who can, for example, enter into a contract. But now with this new legislation, they now have rights. They should be treated equally like everyone else. So it's a big win. Also issues to do with discrimination. People need to understand because discrimination can be direct. So and sometimes it can be indirect. So and the law has now even categorized discrimination, direct discrimination, even given examples of what that looks like. For example, an employer, when you're making an advertisement, make sure that there are no phrases there that discriminates, especially people with disabilities. So you should have, let's say, a statement that says everyone is welcome to apply, and that you'll provide reasonable accommodation, especially for candidates with disabilities, so that they go through a recruitment process and that hiring process, so that if they're successful and they have skills, then they get an equal chance to compete. So so those are the three things I would say. They are very clear and they are in point. And the last thing is that they are now if you commit an offense, there are penalties. So like the example I've just shared, someone who has a visual disability successfully sued one of the biggest banks because they were denied. They were asked to get a power of attorney. That means they were asked to give someone else authority to operate their bank account. But they were able to prove in court that you're discriminating me. And they won. And the bank was asked to pay damages to this person. So times have changed. All of us as stakeholders in the disability sector, people with disabilities themselves, everyone, employers, even governments themselves, both at national and county level, kila mtu, you know your roles and responsibilities, because if you find yourself on the wrong side of this law, you could find yourself in front of a judge. Partnership is important. Partnerships. Let's work together, because the way we began the year, you saw how funding has diminished, and we started the year in a crisis mode. And this is not a time to go in your silos. It's time to pull together, because we also know the government, both national and also county governments, there are many competing priorities, and among them is inclusion of people with disabilities. That means we must now, more than ever, work together in partnerships, both in the public space and also the private sector. So the public-private partnerships are important. Also, the private sector is key. Private sector is important in this country. Let's all speak together as citizens of this country to make sure that we are pulling together towards promoting and advancing rights of and well-being of Kenyans with disabilities.